Hey everyone, I am Kate Volman and I am so pleased to be joined by John Lee Dumas. He is the host of EOFire, an award-winning podcast where he interviews today's most successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. JLD has grown EOFire, which is Entrepreneur on Fire, to a multi-million-dollar a year business with over 1,500 interviews and 1.5 million monthly listeners. He is the author of the Freedom Journal and the Mastery Journal, two of the most funded publishing campaigns of all time on Kickstarter. And all the magic happens over at EOFire.com. John, thank you so much for joining today. This is so fun.
KV, you asked, I answered. I am ready to ignite, girl.
I was just going to say, can I use your thing? Are you ready to ignite? So John, you have interviewed so many incredible entrepreneurs. Obviously, you are one yourself. Give everyone just kind of a high-level overview of your journey and how you created this incredibly blessed life that you've created for yourself.
Yeah, so real high level, I actually graduated college back in 2002 at the age of 22 on an Army ROTC scholarship. So my first experience in the real world was pretty real. I did 4 years active duty. 13 of those months were as an officer in Iraq, which was pretty intense. So I spent 13 months tour of duty in Iraq. Post-military, I tried a bunch of things, Kate, but I failed at a lot of things. You know, I just didn't find my swing. And so I think it's okay for us to have like a season of failure. You know, for me, it was 6 years of a season of failure. For some people, it's going to be 6 months or 60 years. You just don't know how long that season of failure is going to be. But I think as long as we just keep remembering, hey, let's learn from those failures and keep growing from them, good things can happen. Because I learned from my failure in law school. I quit, I dropped out. I learned from my failure in corporate finance. You know, I quit after one year in a cubicle. I learned from my real estate experience. And again, this was 6 years of me struggling. One thing I never stopped doing, which was my savior, was learning and educating myself through books, through audiobooks, through podcasts. And I fell in love with the medium of podcasting, Kate. And I just loved it. It was free, on demand, great content, great value. And I was driving around one day saying, hey, I'm going to go back home because I'm in a car every single day. So I'm going to go home and find that daily show, that 7-day-a-week show that interviews entrepreneurs and talks about their journey, because that's what's helping me most right now. So I went back to iTunes, looked for the show. It didn't exist. And I said, hey, why not be that person that creates the show that I wish existed? I had no experience. I had literally no online presence, no Twitter page, Facebook, none of that. I just started from scratch. But I said, I'm going to do it every single day. That was almost 5 years ago now. That was over 1,700 interviews ago. That was over 46 million listens ago. And as you mentioned, 1.5 million listens every single month on the show. It's been a great experience. I've turned it into not just a show that gets a lot of people to listen, which is one thing, but EOFire generates over, multiple millions of dollars every single year, but over $150,000 every single month. In fact, our last month was a huge month because one of those journals hit, the Mastery Journal that you mentioned, and we did over $490,000 just in the month of March for 2017. So there's a lot of value that you can give to this world and a lot of revenue that you can generate when you focus on the value first.
Oh my gosh, I know. And you are so incredible to watch. I mean, first of all, you're super transparent. I mean, you talk about income. You have your income on your website for the month.
The last 43 months, we've posted every single month our income reports. And that's actually why this last month is so close to mine, because we just posted yesterday March's monthly income report, which was $490,000. Now, that's higher than usual. Again, that was because we had a big launch that completed and we got paid out for that from Kickstarter. But we're typically anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 every single month on multiple revenue streams. So if you want to check out what those revenue streams are, it's at eofire.com/income.
That is incredible. And I love that you said you wanted something, you couldn't find it, so why not you be the one that creates it?
Why not?
So let's talk a little bit about podcasting, because you started with podcasting and that platform. Obviously, that was 5 years ago, and now it's a very different space, social media, podcasts. A lot more people have podcasts. So for a small business owner that's watching that hears you should be podcasting, do you recommend it now? Is it still good for business? Is it too crowded of a space? What's your take on that?
I definitely recommend it, but there's one thing you have to focus on when it comes to podcasting. You have to be niche, and you have to know who your perfect listener is. Like for this podcast, for the GoDaddy's podcast, I know that you know who your perfect listener is. You know, somebody that wants to launch a website, that wants to get a domain name, that wants to have services that go around building a website and building a brand and design and all this stuff, because you offer all these services. So you know who your perfect listener is. You're going to create the show to attract that perfect listener. You know, back in 2012, I just created a show interviewing entrepreneurs, and it worked because nobody was doing it. That doesn't work in 2017. Like, we have people in my community, Podcasters Paradise, who are succeeding, and they're succeeding because they're going niche. What I mean by that is they're finding that one topic, they're going down, down, down until they can find that area that they're just serving a small amount of people, but in the most powerful way, so they can get that initial momentum, that initial raving fan base, and then they can broaden out as they get their chops and as they understand what to serve that market more fully in. I have one podcaster in Paradise. Her name's Kim. She has 3 podcasts that are all generating revenue. Why? Because they're all focused on different forms of ballet. So it's just people that are pressing the play button on her show that love ballet. That's it. So her sponsors know, hey, I know if someone's listening to Kim's show that they love ballet, they need shoes, they need this, they need that. So sponsors are flocking to her because they know that every time someone presses play, that's a perfect potential audience member for them, a perfect person who might buy one of their products, their services, their communities, because that's niche, it's focused. So you have to go niche, you have to go focused.
So for someone that's watching and they're thinking, yeah, no, I do that. I go niche. Like, how can you discover if you have to get even more specific? Because I think a lot of businesses still are very marketing to the masses, or they think they're niche. Go.
Engagement. If you're not getting any engagement, you're not going niche enough. And you'll know when you're going niche enough because you'll start getting people reaching out to you saying, wow, I feel like you created the show just for me because you went so specific, so niche. Like maybe it's going to be a fishing show, for Northwest Canada, in the springtime. And like, that's what your show's focused on the rivers and on the different lures. Like I'm going real deep and specific here, but that's when you know you're going to start getting that engagement because you're going to have people being like, I fish in Northwest Canada in the streams and I need some help on my lures and like I need all these different things. So if you're not getting engagement, you're not niche enough yet. And don't be afraid, by the way, that when you go niche, you can't come back. Like you can't. You go niche, you get that initial momentum, those first few raving fans to engage with you. You ask them, what are you struggling with? What are your obstacles? What are your challenges? Then they'll tell you what their problems are. Then you can create the solution for them in the form of a product, a service, or a community. You can start to engage with them more, and then you start adding more things. And I'm not going to put words in GoDaddy's mouth because I don't know their whole history, but they started off saying, hey, come buy a domain from us. And then it was, now come buy a domain and host with us. Oh, and we provide building services and email services. They kept adding on. So they started niche, and ever since then, they've been adding on very valuable services to service their one client in many different facets. So that's how you can look at an example that GoDaddy's done and other companies have done to start with one core thing and branch out from there.
You have a very engaged audience. Obviously, people love your show. They listen to it. I know you get asked to speak and you probably get a gazillion emails every day. Is there one email that you get all the time from your audience, like just every day?
Well, there's one email that I get every day about 300 times a month, and that's, John, can I be on your show? So that's a very consistent email that I get, which is not a very effective email, by the way. But an email that I do get very often is, John, like, thank you for your transparency. Like, we just love that you are transparent with the revenue that you make, with the failures that you have. I just do these, what I call coffee with JLD, where I'm in a tank top. You're lucky that I'm wearing a shirt today because I'm in Puerto Rico. Like, I'm rarely wearing. Like,
keep it PG, JLD.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying topless. I'm just saying, like, I'll go with the tank top.
Yeah.
I'll go with this, that, because I just keep it real in Puerto Rico. I'm not gonna try to pretend like, hey, I'm all dressed up in a suit and a tie when I'm not. So I have these things like coffee with JLD, and I just kick back. I have my feet up on my chair. Or on my desk, and I just have a cup of coffee, and I just say, hey guys, you want to hang out? Let's hang out. ask me any questions, and we'll just rap for an hour on questions. I'll have a good time, and I have no agenda, and it's just me. And when people see me at conferences and they meet me in person for the first time, they're like, John, this is weird. Like, you actually are like you are in person. And I'm like, how you sound on your podcast. And I'm like, well, that's just because that's who I am. And believe me, it wasn't easy to do that. I didn't start off that way. I started off all rigid and awkward and robotic and naive and inexperienced. Like, go back and listen to my first couple hundred episodes. They weren't good because I wasn't good, but I kept doing it. I kept becoming just more comfortable in my own skin with my microphone, just having a normal conversation. And I hear those beginning podcasters now, and I feel for them because I was them. Like, I didn't start off awesome at podcasting, and I'm still trying to get better every single day. But that's the biggest thing that I get from my listeners and my people that reach out via social media or emails is, John, just thank you for your transparency. So that would be something I'd recommend everybody, just as soon as you can get there, to be genuine, authentic, and transparent, the better.
When did you realize, oh my gosh, I really have something here. This is incredible, and I'm going to keep going. So for those that are watching that might have started something and they're just kind of waiting for some of that engagement and traction, how do you continue to go and wait for that feedback without giving up too quickly, but also knowing that you're, doing the right thing?
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. I mean, this is not something where you put in $100 in Facebook ads and you make 200. Like, this is something where you're laying the groundwork, brick by brick, foundation first, and then you grow. I get people that send me messages all the time. John, like, how do I start my show by interviewing all the biggest guests in the world? And I say, you don't, because you don't have a show yet. You don't have an audience yet. And these people's time is valuable. Start, brick by brick by brick. Don't go after the Tim Ferriss and the Gary Vaynerchuk's day one. Go after the D and C level entrepreneurs who are doing great things and they're still getting going, and they might not, have like all of the press and all of the publicity right now. Like, do it brick by brick by brick. And so for me, looking back, like, it was a marathon, and I knew that I had something going when I was starting to get more emails from people wanting to be on my show than I had spots for. Because the biggest thing, Kate, that people told me was, John, you're going to run out of guests. And that was a concern for me because it was Cliff Ravenscraft who was telling me that, the podcast answer man. It was my mentor, Jamie Masters, of The Eventual Millionaire, both amazing podcasters who gave me so much great advice. They said, John, you're going to run out of guests. Don't do a daily show. 7 days a week is a big mistake. And I believed them, but I knew that I had to put the blinders on that advice and do my daily show, even though I still had that fear that was going to be true. But when I got to the point where I'm like, I got 50 emails this month of people wanting to be on my show, and my show's daily, so there's only 30 per month. Wow, this feels like I'm onto something. And now I'm, way over 300. I have a whole VA. His job is basically to take those emails, send the applications, go through the applications, send me the cream of the crop, and do this and do that. So that's a whole, basically job now for a person to go through those email applications. But, back in the day, that was kind of my first proof of concept of like, wow, there are plenty of entrepreneurs out there doing really cool things. Like, I think I might be able to get to episode 100, 1,000, and now I'm less than a year away from episode 2,000.
Ah, that's so incredible. Congratulations, man. It's just so fun watching you do your work. And John has an awesome free podcasting course. You have so many free courses, so check out EOFire.com. But this one specifically for those that are interested in podcasting, go and check that out. I want to talk to you about self-awareness because you talked about how you figured out what you did really well. 3 things: productivity, discipline, and focus. And you figured out how to use those things that you're so good at to create these journals that are such massive successes. Talk to us about the Freedom Journal and the Mastery Journal.
Okay, let me set the stage. We already talked about this a little bit, and I think it's so important to circle back real quickly, and that is how I initially found my success and how I see so many entrepreneurs finding their success is, number one, finding the niche that they can get initial traction. That initial traction is going to give them that engagement, so they start having that back and forth with a listener, a reader, a viewer, whatever that might be, and you ask that person, what are you struggling with? And then you just listen to their pain points or obstacles or challenges, and then you can provide the solution once you see that there's this common thread that keeps coming back and forth. And for the Freedom Journal, my audience is coming back pretty consistently saying, John, what is the one commonality that all of your guests have in common? Like, we're struggling right now. What makes them successful? And I sat down and realized that, number one, it was hard work, But number two, my guests all knew how to set and accomplish goals. That's why they were successful. So I created the tool, the step-by-step guide for people to follow it and in 100 days accomplish their number one goal. And I called it the Freedom Journal. Accomplish your number one goal in 100 days. And it's just beautiful. I can grab it here in a second. I'll grab it when you start talking again. It's a beautiful faux leather gold embossed journal that is a step-by-step guide to doing just that one thing, accomplishing your number one goal. I launched it on Kickstarter in January of 2016. It went viral. And in 33 days, we had over 8,000 backers. We did over $453,000 in 33 days for a $39 journal. So massive success. And what's great too is that ended in February of last year. Since then, we've been doing 25 to 50,000 in that range, between 25 to 50K every month in Freedom Journal sales. So it just keeps on selling. We have people on their fourth and fifth Freedom Journal right now, which to me is amazing, mind-blowing, so cool. And I know that because we have a private Facebook group just for Freedom and Mastery Journalers, so I see it every single day. Then, fast forward, the Freedom Journal is a success, and people are like, John, I'm now accomplishing my number one goal. What do I do next? Do I just go for another goal? And I'm like, in some cases, yes, you need to accomplish your next goal. But in other cases, you just want to amplify the goal that you just succeeded. And I'm kind of pointing here right now, if you're watching on video, to my podcast, because when I accomplished the goal of launching my podcast, I had to amplify that success. So how did I do that? Well, I was waking up every single morning, focusing on being productive and disciplined to bringing EOFire forward, to having EntrepreneurFire get more listeners, more ratings, more reviews, more all of the things. I was focused on that. And that's why I brought EOFire to where it's now a multi-million-dollar a year business. So I realized that over these last 4+ years that I've mastered these three skills. I've mastered productivity, I've mastered discipline, and I've mastered focus. And my intraday proves that with everything that I do and all that I accomplish. When we jumped on, before we even started pressing record button, you're like, John, like, you're so productive. Like, you seem like you're doing so many things. And I am. I really, really am. And I can honestly say that, humbly, because I know what I produce on a day-to-day basis. And I'm very proud of that. And I also know that my life is still in balance with exercising and eating healthy and spending time with friends and family all the way across. So that being said, I decided to create the second journal to go along with the Freedom Journal. And I called that the Mastery Journal, Master of Productivity, Discipline, and Focus in 100 days. I just love that time blocking. You have this time blocking of when you're starting and when you'll finish that task. And so we launched that this past January of 2017. And in 33 days, we raised over $280,000 for this follow-up, making it the second most funded journal of all time on Kickstarter. And as we now have it available on Amazon and our Shopify store at themasterjournal.com, we're seeing very similar sales numbers that we are seeing with the Freedom Journal because people are using the two together. They're doing one then the other. But the most important thing is they're improving their lives. And we now have over 8,000 people in that Facebook group that are sharing their stories of either accomplishing the number one goal or mastering these three skills or a combination of both at the same time every single day.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. That is incredible. And the way in which you did it too, what prompted you to have the journal on Kickstarter and raise money that way?
It's a great question because it was a question a lot of people had for me. John, why did you use a crowdfunding platform? One reason that it was huge was because we partnered with Pencils of Promise, because I really wanted these journals to be about the fact that they were going to be an individual tool for people to improve their lives, but also knowing that when they invested in these journals, they were not just handing money over to EOFire and to myself and to my team, but that they were doing something for a greater good as well. So that's why we brought on Pencils of Promise as a partner. And every time we hit a funding goal in the Kickstarter campaign, I wrote a check on behalf of the supporters of the Freedom and Mastery Journal to Pencils of Promise for $25,000 to build a school in a developing country. Because, for me, self-education has gotten me everywhere. So I want to give the gift of education to those less fortunate. So that was why I chose that cause. Plus, I'm a good friend of Adam Braun, who's the founder of Pencils of Promise. Super cool guy. Had him on the show a couple times and just really jived with him. So I knew it was a great organization. I knew it was a great cause. I love education. And so because they were going to put so much faith in us and they were going to commit to social media sharing and this and that, I wanted it to be independent third party that was tracking the amount of backers, tracking the dollars that were raised, because we had those funding goals. And plus, Kickstarter is just the wheel. It's already been invented. I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel and maybe just have something go wrong, like with a payment processor or a website crash or this or that, because you never know like how viral something's going to go. And, with the Freedom Journal, it went crazy day one. It was picked up by Forbes, Fox, like all these different places. Like it could have crashed my website. But, Kickstarter, of course, is very robust, and they were ready to prepare. They were prepared to handle all that stuff. So those were a couple of the reasons that I went with Kickstarter. Something that I will throw out there as well. Those are great platforms to prove your concept before you actually make the product, or you could, have the product made in your mind or, virtually, but before you actually go to print and or make something that's physical or spend a lot of time, energy, and effort, you can really prove your concept. And if people vote with their wallet, yes, then you create it. If they don't, then maybe you try something different and you haven't wasted all of that potential time, energy, money, effort, etc.
Yeah, good point. Productivity tips. Can you share any of your productivity tips that you think that small business owners need to hear? Most of them just need to hear it.
Yeah, there's so many. And I spent a year just researching the crap out of productivity, out of discipline, out of focus. And that's how I married those three skills together into the Mastery Journal and made sure that if you follow that system, you will master those three skills in 100 days. And the biggest thing, number one, is people don't have time blocking on a day-to-day basis. And it's called the Pomodoro method. This is a tried and true, scientifically proven system that people just ignore. It's been around for decades and decades and decades. And when I was researching, it just kept coming up time and time again when it came to productivity. And I said, I'm going to try this. And I did it, and it was mind-blowing when I just set a 45-minute timer, literally. Not just set, oh, look at my clock, I'm going to work for the next 45 minutes, and then just kind of do it. But no, physically set a timer, press the start button, see the seconds start to count down, and then say, okay, I now have 45 minutes to get this stuff done. And it just kicks your brain into a different gear, and you just focus. Like, why do we always in college cram on that final day and we somehow finish our paper or whatever it is for the test? It's because we have to. So when you compress things into a time frame where when that beeper goes off, you are stepping away and you're giving yourself a refresh time, it's a game changer. So Pomodoro method is huge, and I walk you through the process of that. But just as important as that focus session that we have within the Mastery Journal for productivity, if you want to stay productive all day long, you have to have this, what I call forced refresh session, where you're taking 15, 20 minutes and you're doing something that's not taking that mental brain power. I go for a walk outside. I have a pull-up bar behind me. I might whip off some pull-ups. I might lay down on my little Chase lounger behind me and read a fiction book for 10, 15 minutes. Just something to unwind my mind so that when I come back for session 2, because by the way, I recommend a minimum of 4 of these focus sessions every single day. When I come back for session 2 for that focus session, I'm refreshed and I'm ready to dive back in on that timer. And that's going to stop you from procrastinating. You're going to be shocked at how much you get done in that time block when you use the Pomodoro method, when you set the timer and the intention to get stuff done.
Awesome. So if you are watching this, that is a challenge to block your time, that 4-hour time frame. I love that method. I actually learned that from Jamie Masters, way back when.
I'll tell you right now, Kate, people are listening. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do it, but they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it right. They're going to, again, do something stupid, like look at a clock and say, I'll work for the next 45 minutes. And, and then they'll just get into the normal crap they do, like going to Facebook or YouTube or this or that. Set your actual focus intention. You can even just go to EOFire.com/support. And I give you the free the first 30 pages of the Mastery Journal for free via this PDF. And you can just follow the system right there. It's everything you need. It's the explanation of the system that I created, plus the first 30 days as well to get you going.
Wow, that is awesome. Thank you so much for offering that, John. So good. All right. I'm sure you get this question all the time, but I have to ask because I'm just so curious because I love so many of your guests. In fact, I was just re-listening to James Altucher because I'm just such a fan of his. And so is there one guest that you had on that just blew you away, that just shared some really interesting advice that was just off the charts different from a lot of the other entrepreneurs that you've heard of?
Yeah, Sally Hogshead is definitely goes down as one of my favorite guests. I've had her on a few times because of how big a fan I am of her, and
Mm-hmm.
I just love her creation of her 49 archetypes that she created. She has this assessment. You take the assessment, it kicks you out as one of these different 49 archetypes. So there's not like disc where there's like 4 levels. This is a potential of 49 different responses, and when you get who you actually are of one of these 49 archetypes, you're like, that's me. And like you look at like the ones that are around you, which are close to you, you're like, that's almost me, but that one's me. Like you just nailed it. And what I loved is I took it, and then Kate took it, and so Kate was an orchestrator, I was a victor, and like it just shows how and why we work so well together. So I think it's so valuable for people that have teams, or they work with their significant others, or they just have a business partner. Like you just have to know the strengths and the weaknesses of each other, and that assessment does it so well. So when she came on and described that, it blew me away. It was actually pretty cool. Fire Nation was super obsessed with it because she said before the interview, she's like, "Hey John, I'm gonna give a promo code. It's a $79 assessment, but I'm gonna give a promo code to give it for people for free for 48 hours." She's like, "We'll just cap it at 500 or something." And I was just like, would you mind just not capping? I'm like, I don't know how many people are gonna take you up on that, but I don't want to have to like be fielding all these emails if we get to the 500 person cap. She's like, "Oh, no problem. Doesn't matter. Like, we'll just cap it. We won't have it capped." She emailed me back like 3 days later, like 6,000 people had taken the assessment.
What?
And now she uses the results from Fire Nation on her keynotes about this to like show the results. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So just to touch back a little bit on just being really self-aware. I think being self-aware is so important for a small business owner. You knew your strengths, you know what you're good at, and you created these products to prove it and then brought them to market. And for some people, how did you figure that out? Like, how did you figure out these are truly the things that I'm good at and this is what I need to focus on, and how can I really use my strengths to help my business?
There's a Chinese proverb that I love, and that's, if you want to be, do. There's just a lot of things I didn't know about myself until I did those things over and over again. I didn't know that I was going to become a good podcast host. Like, I had to do it hundreds and hundreds of times to finally get there. Like, I didn't know that I was going to be good at doing webinars. Like, I didn't know that I was going to be bad at doing a lot of things, and I'm bad at a lot of things. But I had to prove it to myself first. So like, just doing that thing will uncover so many things about you. Like, I love the quote that you can't steer a stationary ship. And so when people try to do that, they're like, I got to figure everything out first. I got to get all the rudders aligned. And I'm like, you're not going anywhere. You can't steer your life until you're moving, until you've taken action. So just take action, do something, reassess, pivot if you need to, adjust. But the key thing is always be moving forward.
Love that. Always be moving forward. And is there any kind of last minute, what's the best advice that you can give and offer the listeners?
This is the best advice by a long shot. And this is actually interesting because I heard this quote in my 20s, even in my early 30s. And it didn't mean anything to me because I wasn't like ready to receive the knowledge. But when I heard it again at 32 years old, which was 5 years ago, it really just like blindsided me with how much it changed my mindset and changed everything for me. And that's an Albert Einstein quote, which is, try not to become a person of success, but rather become a person of value. Mm-hmm. And again, I'd heard that before, but I kind of shrugged it off. And then when I heard it again at 32 years old, I looked back on the last 6 years that I had been failing, from 26 to 32 post-military. And I said, man, I've been doing the exact opposite. I've been trying to become a person of success. I've been chasing success. I've been chasing money. I've been chasing, respect. And none of it's been coming my way, except just been unhappy and failing and not being successful. So with EOFire, I just flipped everything on its head. And I said, I'm just going to become a person of value. That's it. And that was a daily show, interviewing entrepreneurs, sharing that with the world for free. And for 6 months, like, no money came in the door. But at month 7, I was approached by sponsors. And so money started to trickle in. And then by a year, I was making $100,000 a month. And I haven't made less since. And again, we just had a $500,000 month last month, which higher than normal, but it still shows the possibility of what can happen when you try to become a person of value.
That is such incredible advice. Thank you so much, John. Is there anybody up and coming that you're super excited about to have on the podcast?
I'm excited about a lot of people. I recently had Tony Robbins on, which was really cool. He was the guy
I
who
know.
sights on, and I was just like, oh, finally, yes, like had him on, which was cool. Somebody that's upcoming. You know, I can't actually think of a person. I don't actually want to say somebody right there and maybe upset all the other thousands of people.
I know, that's true. I shouldn't ask that. I shouldn't. You have interviewed some incredible people. Seth Godin is one of my faves, but
He was early. That's an example of where I was bad, but because of how I set my show up, and I was just at that stage as a podcaster, the conduit, I would ask a question, get out of the way, let him answer, ask a quick question, get out of the way. And that was my strategy for a long time. So that's why when you start, hey, just be that person of value.
Well, John, you are absolutely a person of value. Thank you so much. If you haven't listened to his podcast, you must, because every guest is stellar. You ask great questions. It's such a conversation that you have with everyone. It's just fun. It's engaging. And you just share some really great information. And go to EOFire.com because free podcast course, a free webinar course, a free goals course. I mean, could you not give more things away for free?
I also have a free funnel course as well. Why not?
Oh my gosh, I know. It's insane. There's just so many things. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you for taking the time to chat with me and everyone that's watching. I so appreciate it. And hey, I'll be listening.
You the bomb.